Well, hey there. Pastor Cody.
And I'm Pastor Matt.
And we're here to have ourselves a conversation,
Yes.
as long as my voice holds out.
Yeah.
If you can't tell, this is not my late night radio host voice. I'm just a little sick.
Yeah. He's struggling.
Now for a word from our sponsors.
Yeah. I told him to keep his droplets over there.
Yeah, I put a mask on, but it's been so long since I dug it out. It's got lint all over it, and I just felt like you all deserve better. Yeah. So,
So he's going to talk that way.
I'm going to talk this way. Yeah. Whoop, microphone wouldn't shift. It is what it is.
No, it's all
Click
good.
that link to contribute to this podcast, and we'll get new mic stands.
Get behind that paywall.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if there was such a thing,
Yeah.
rumor has it that if you do pay, there is a paywall for you to get behind, and you can have all of the stuff that we just said that should not go on air ever.
Because there's a lot of that stuff.
And you'll have to sign a non-disclosure form to have access to it. But it's good stuff.
That stuff will never be aired.
Never.
Yeah.
As long as Drew has a say.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if he has it out for us and just doesn't edit it 1 week.
We'd be in bad
Please don't
shape.
do that, Drew. That would be terrible.
We'll stay on your good side.
Yeah.
Love you, Drew.
Love you so much.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're here this week. Just a brief intro. We're talking about your message when it's time to make a decision.
Yeah.
From Luke chapter 6. And if you've been with us for a while, if that sermon title sounds familiar, that's because he's already preached it before. Maybe I'll put
let the cat out of the bag, didn't you?
Maybe. But it's fitting because we're about to go, we're embarking on a 21-day fast as a church. And this, and it really, I just finished listening to it today, actually. And it's a really good fit for what we're talking about for the fast and, prepping going into that. It's really, really good, really helpful.
Cool.
Good stuff.
Glad it was a blessing.
It was a blessing. Yep. Whew. All right. Had to get a breath there. Anyway, so
It's probably COVID.
It's probably COVID. This may be my last broadcast ever.
Probably
I may
not,
die.
though. Probably not, because we've both had COVID.
I told my wife, I was like, and I know I shouldn't say this, but I finally got our life insurance straight like a couple days ago. And it's, no, listen.
Dude, come on.
I know. It's terrible. But I got a lot, so I made up for it.
So you're good.
I'm good. Yeah.
No, I don't mean terrible in the fact that you're just now getting one. That is terrible. No, it's not that bad. You're still young. But I'm saying, like, terrible in the fact that, you're so morbid. It just goes to, I'll probably kick the bucket in the next couple days.
Well, now I feel okay about it because she'll be taken care of. You know what I mean?
care of.
I feel I'm like, you know what? I can die in peace knowing that my house, my van will be paid for, and she'll be able to live for a couple years without me, and some other dude will inevitably inherit all of it. Don't take that the wrong way, babe. I know you're probably listening.
Yeah, right. No, she doesn't listen.
Yeah, don't ever remarry. You don't need that. You really don't. I'll just buy more insurance. It's cool. But anyway, it's effective on the 1st, and I was like, I'm going to be really upset if I die from something like the 31st. Like that, I would literally...
You'll be all right. You wouldn't know.
Huh?
I mean, you would know, but it wouldn't be your concern at that point.
Well, I really would like to experience some sort of bliss going into the afterlife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would be like, crap. Like, dang it.
No,
well, have fun with that, babe. I'll see you soon.
I would be like, crap. I'd be left with it. Oh, my gosh.
But anyway, without further ado, let's jump in here. All right, jumping back in here. So let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Luke chapter 6, 12 through 19. Just give us a landscape for those who are not familiar with that passage off the top of their head. Just give us an idea what's going on there in that passage.
Well, we have Jesus making the decision for his 12 disciples, kind of narrowing. The way I understand it is he had a large group of people, a multitude, if you will.
Had to thin the herd a little bit, just like COVID does.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think still...
That's harsh.
That was hard. Man, this is such a morbid
such
podcast.
Such a morbid podcast.
We like kicked it off with you and your insurance. And man, I think you're going through some stuff. Let's pray for you at the end of the podcast.
I pray for healing, please. If I feel better later this evening, I'll know that y'all did.
Yeah, he's sick. It's okay. We'll give him a break. But we have Jesus entering into his ministry. And of course, early on, he's selecting these disciples, and my take on it is that you have 12 because it's a significant number with the 12 tribes of Israel.
Yeah,
and I kind of alluded to this. It doesn't really matter to me at this point, whether you're someone who believes that Israel is its own thing versus the church versus the connection to that Jesus was trying to make, So wherever you land, if you're on one end of it where you believe that the church is the new Israel versus two separate entities, it really doesn't matter, but the point is what we see in the New Testament are patterns. They're patterns as I see it. That what happened in the Old Testament was significant and prophetic as to what was going to come and what was going to happen. So we have the Lord using that narrative of 12 tribes of Israel because that's really the vehicle that brought Jesus there, and so that vehicle takes it to the rest of the world. And so those 12, what I love about it is that they're called apostles, and if you dig into that word. Disciples, apostles, specifically, it's tied to the same word in the Old Testament, talking about messengers.
Is it? I haven't looked at. I heard you say that, and I wanted to look into it. Is like where Malachim would be found in the Old Testament for messengers? Is that?
I didn't pull out the specific.
No, it's pretty much the same thing. It seems.
Yeah, I didn't do a word study this time around, but I probably did on the first round. But it was definitely in the commentary. One that I trust, and at some point you have the same ties to that word messenger. And the illustration that's in the message is David proposing to Abigail, but sending messengers to do that proposal, and so she accepts and washes the feet of those messengers. So what we see here is so relevant in the sense that Jesus is selecting the 12. We have implications of Israel right within that. So the purpose of Israel playing out in the message and ministry of Jesus, and then using words and language like disciples and a significant number to say that these messengers that I'm selecting will be the groundwork or the foundation laid for the rest of the world, for the church. Right? Yeah. And so there's implications in Ephesians chapter 2, I believe, verse 20, and throughout, right? Throughout the significance is seen, especially in the first chapter of the book of Acts, when Judas dies and he is, of course, kills himself. We see the significance of the 12 within the early church after Jesus ascends in making it a matter of priority to elect and fill that 12th seat.
Yeah. Big decisions. Anyway,
yeah.
And that seems to be the general theme that you carry through the message is that these are big, very, really the course of the whole world,
that's
rested on these decisions.
Yeah.
And Jesus had a way that he went about making these decisions, and it was really, really significant. Moving through here, I don't know what you want to hit on. I know you had some really practical stuff.
It is. It's just a practical message.
This is very practical. Yeah. The notes are published in the notes of this podcast.
Yeah.
And please,
if you struggle with making decisions, just in general, and this is a message that I needed, and as I go back and rehash and read, and I had a huge. I'll say this. I'll share this.
Sure.
I had a moment. I believe it was Christmas Eve. I was walking my dog, and my neighborhood has walking trails. And so, I was on one of the walking trails, and there's benches, as you go along the walking trail, there's benches and clearings by the water. And so, I felt like a strong...
And then I saw this piece of grilled cheese that had Jesus burned into
it. No, it wasn't like a 600-foot Jesus or whatever, but, the Lord impressed on me, to stop and pray. And I sat there, and we've stopped at that bench before, which I think is significant. But so when I stopped, my dog, she jumped up on the bench, and she just sits there and looks at me. And there's just a real calm. And I was basically arguing with the Lord about something that had been on my heart. And we'll talk more about it. It was a decision for the church, which actually
a weighty one.
Yeah, sure. A weighty one that went into the elder group today. But the Lord dealt with me. I mean, in a real, I would say even audible way. The Lord speaks, and when you pray, sometimes it's that one-way communication where you're praying to God, but then there are other times where you're feeling and understanding and hearing Him speak to you. And He was speaking to me, and it wasn't like a chastisement, but it was more like, did you not see the things that I had done? Did you not pick up on those cues? Did you not see and understand what I was trying to get you to see and what I was trying to get you to do? Because those things that the Lord had done were supposed to have a certain decision or a certain outcome. And I had kind of been looking at it from a different perspective. And so that prayer, that moment, the Lord solidified in my heart a different direction. And so it was time to make a decision. And then after that time with the Lord, that time of prayer, I got on my phone and text literally on a dark trail that, is pitch black at some point, walking through the woods, and there's certain parts that are lighted. And I got to a dark part in the trail, and I was like, man, I need to put this out there right now. And so I pulled out my phone and I texted some of our elders, some of our leaders. And I was like, look, the Lord just did something in my heart, specific, and I feel like this has led me to this decision. And so whatever that is for you, and I've been encouraging our church, even through this message, this is a time of decision. We're moving into a new year. Some of you may have a career change that you're thinking about, a relationship that that needs mending, a friendship that maybe needs ending, right?
Yeah.
And maybe might need to be ended. So there's decisions to be made. And so I couldn't help but think, I went back to this passage, a very famous passage when Jesus makes a decision for 12 people. He changes their lives. There's implications for his decisions. But I went back and I refreshed my spiritual mind in how he dealt and made these decisions. And man, I was like, this is so helpful. I was like, I have to preach this on Sunday. So, looking at the practical end, yes, the spiritual end, he went that night into the mountain and prayed all night with the Lord. Mm-hmm. But on the practical end, he did some of the things that he needed to do. He understood that there were imperfect factors in his decision that had to be made. There's just a lot of really neat things that we can learn from the way Jesus made his decisions. So that was really the heart behind it, where I am, where the Lord's dealing with me on specific things in my life. And I just can't help but think that some of you are probably dealing with some of the same things.
Yeah, it's really good. And one of the things that that I thought was super practical and really good to just think about was your first point, where you said Jesus knew the right decision even though the subject matter of the decision wasn't perfect. And I feel like for a lot of us, we're plagued with this idea that it has to be a perfect storm for us to make a certain move. Like the stars have to align, everything has to be perfect the way we want it. Otherwise, we just won't make any decisions.
Yeah.
And these are the people, the people that do that always find themselves behind the 8 ball of where they'd like to be.
Yeah.
Because they never end up making the decision.
Yeah, that's right.
And you brought up that, there's a lot of young people today that don't want to get married.
That's true.
Because they're waiting for, I want to have a certain amount of money saved up, or I want to be able to afford a house in X place, or
a certain kind of wedding.
Or a $40,000 wedding,
Yeah.
which is just crazy. I literally cannot fathom that. Yeah. Imagine being strained financially because you drop $50K.
Right. If you're a millionaire and you want to have a $40,000-$50,000 wedding, who cares?
Right. It's about living and doing things within your means.
But for most people, that's not a reality. And so you shouldn't structure your entire life based on something that is a false sense of that reality.
Right.
Which is what we do.
Right.
We want perfection in our imperfect lives.
But the wedding pictures will look so good. Yeah. And then,
Yeah.
you're like me, and your wife's like, can we get these pictures hung up? And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it eventually.
What would be neat? And this is something that Sarah and I have talked about. It's like, we're probably going to send it on our 15-year wedding. Oh, yeah. We're going to send it. We're probably going to have the wedding that we never had, and not to make our parents feel bad or her parents feel bad. You know what I mean? But we had a wedding that was for the most part within our means, but it wasn't quite. We were in a different life stage, in a different denomination that dictated certain things.
Right.
And so we're like, man, we can just freaking send it on our 15.
Yeah.
But how would the mindset change if we were focused on letting the celebration get bigger through the years? Right? We have a celebration for 2 people that are probably statistically not going to be together in 10 years.
And then we do nothing to celebrate.
And we do nothing to celebrate those
a
who
decade
make
and
it.
a half,
Right.
2 decades, 3 decades.
We've got this thing backwards.
It is.
We just figured out something really awesome right here on this podcast.
We did.
Yeah. But that's kind of where Sarah and I are man, we're going to we're going to hit our fitness goals. We're going to do all these things by, our 15 year. And we're going to freaking get a boat. and have like
gonna
the
send it-
Maryland party boat, except one that's worthy, seaworthy, you know.
Yeah,
But like
and you're like, and we're not even going to rent the boat. We're going to buy it. We're going to buy a yacht.
Exactly. But like that's where we're in a season of our life where we could do something a little crazier, you know, like financially or whatever.
And you can actually enjoy it.
Exactly.
And you don't have to invite people like you did to the. Everybody invites people to their wedding. Like, we don't really want to invite them, but what are they going to think?
Yeah. My point is that.
And if you're watching this and you're like, I'm not that person, you're that person. That's just what it is. I'm sorry.
there's just so much pressure in our society to make decisions a certain kind of way.
Right.
And, you know, we can view the optic of Jesus, and I'm not saying Jesus would have a party boat on his 15-year wedding anniversary. That's not what I'm saying. But
I mean, if we're dealing in hypotheticals, he did preach on a boat, so why wouldn't
he do it?
Why wouldn't he do it?
Yeah. But my point is we can view these things from a different lens, you know, that's maybe more productive and would encourage you to live a more gospel-centered life. You know, investing in a marriage that has had some success and you know that is centered around your family and what the Lord has done is a much better idea than spending $40,000 on a brand new marriage with 2 spoiled rotten kids, you know.
Yeah. It's true.
That don't want to get married because they can't have everything, you know, that their parents have, you know.
Yeah. And I think where this hits for me is I tend to lean in the direction of like I'm always down to make like a pretty risky decision. I never really shy away from those, whether it's an intelligent move or not. You know what I mean? Which, for those of you on the opposite end of the spectrum, we need to be friends so we can balance each other out.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about. It's all about balance. There has to be a healthy amount of risk in decisions because you have to, and this is another point that you made, we have to, where's it at? It's not in here, but you said it. But we have to be okay with the fact that ultimately God is sovereign over our decisions.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like we can make decisions, but at the end of the day, the results are really not. I mean, I don't want to say that the results of our decisions are not in our hands because they are to a certain degree.
Look at point number 2.
Point number 2. Where are we at here? Jesus did what he knew to do in order for the outcome to be what it should have been.
Yeah. There's our part and then there's God's part.
Right.
You know, when it comes to that decision making.
And I would say that we will arrive at a decision, but what happens with that decision is never really, we never really
read
know.
that verse from Proverbs. It's right there.
Proverbs.
Should be right there.
Oh, Proverbs 16:33. The lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of the Lord.
That's right.
From your KJV days.
Yeah, man. They knew, you know, that at some point if the dice is thrown, the outcome of the dice toss is the Lord's. And so if you take that mentality of the Lord being sovereign into your decisions, then you can, point number 3, you can trust the process. You know, if we know that we've done our part, we've prayed and fasted, and we know that it's an imperfect subject matter, none of our decisions are going to be, you know, achieving or with perfect things. Right. And so we make decisions we're imperfect with imperfect people, but we trust that the outcome will be what the Lord wants. And so that's another piece of decision making is feeling guilt and feeling pressure from people that have certain expectations, and that determines your experience, right? To quote Lesko. But it's the idea behind that is, I believe, something that causes anxiety. The idea behind making a decision so that it pleases someone. Yeah. You know, the outcome of the decision is the Lord's. You know, there is sowing and reaping, yes. But if you've sowed into that decision the right amount of prayer, the right amount of counsel and discernment that the Lord would expect, and you know that he would expect. You're not, and I said this in the message, if you're living in sin, you'll never have this peace. Right. You'll never have this discernment of trusting the process of your decision making. Many of you aren't comfortable making decisions because you're not living right. And that's a given. If you're living lives that are sowing in to your spiritual life, nothing but havoc, right? And nothing but poor decisions, the outcome's never going to be right. Right. So, it's that balance of saying, look, I know that I'm fallen, but I know I've done my part in this. I am living holy. I am pursuing righteousness. And the rest of it is up to the Lord. So
Yeah.
if I walk through suffering, if I walk through a difficult, hard time, I'm okay with that. I'm secure in that because I know the Lord is near and I know that he is in control. You know, there's so much goodness around how Jesus made these decisions, knowing that one is a traitor, knowing that one of those decisions was a bad decision, but that decision would be used for good. We don't have that in our culture.
We don't.
We don't have the idea of making a wrong decision, but the Lord using that outcome for his goodness and his glory. You know, there should be room for that in your life. But if we're constantly worried about having all of our ducks in a row and everything being perfect, you know, then at some point the Lord's not going to be able to teach you through suffering because, you know, many parents, many grandparents, we bail out, you know, young people specifically, you know, for decisions that they made when the Lord would use that outcome for his good and his glory. You decide to play God in their life.
Right.
Like we have
because
to
we're
learn.
trained that to be a good parent, we have to eliminate suffering.
And that's not
on
the
all
case.
fronts. And it's not.
It's just
it's
not
not.
the case.
It eliminates a lot of learning opportunities.
Yeah. Anyway, so those were some of the heart behind the message that if you go and listen to it, you'll hear. But ultimately, I just want to, I want to make a difference in this new year. I want there to be an impact.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wanted to talk
and
a little
moving,
bit. Go ahead.
And well, moving into that, this is a really good segue. I feel like the topic of suffering. Okay, so this is good. So I listened. This is the past like 2 days. I bit off a little bit at a time of the Remnant Radio. They interviewed Tim Mackey, and they just talked about the Tree of Life. Have you seen that one? It's really good. Nothing. I don't feel like that was not in the the podcast series on it.
Okay.
From Bible Project, but it's really good. But one of the quotes that they had talked about, because you trace that theme and it gets all the way to the crucifixion and then to Revelation with these trees. But you know, ultimately the tree of death for Jesus is our tree of life. And when we accept, when we take of that tree of life, we gain eternal life, and we gain, like, our lives do get better, but we have to define that a little bit better, like what a better life means. Like, ultimately, having a renewed life in Christ, it looks like suffering, and it is, but just because it outwardly looks like turmoil, inwardly it's not. You know, and our calling as followers of Jesus is to bear with him in his sufferings. As the body of Christ, we have to suffer. We are called to do that. And when we avoid that, we're missing out on a blessing. And I think that moving into the new year and moving into the fast, like this idea of, you know, purposefully, and some of you, you know, depending on, and we'll talk about it more, I'm sure, but but some of you will give up things and give up food, and you will intentionally inflict suffering on yourself. Yeah. And that looks very backwards from the outside, but what you're experiencing on the inside is not suffering, even though your body is suffering. That's right. And that we have to, I feel like, and this is something that I'm trying to work on for me, because it's very, you know, we run from suffering as people. That's what we do. Yeah. But we have to, we have to get in a mode where we to some degree actively pursue suffering, because it is a matter of calling, and it is a way, like the church always grows under persecution. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it always does. But yet we run from that. You know, it's, you know, preachers all over the country every Sunday will be like, it's not like that here, but if you don't vote the right way, it will be. You know, and it's like we have to, like, our churches are being trained to, like, not want that and not be ready to go through that. Yeah. But it's just so backwards. But I don't know. I thought that was just the whole tree thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It really is. Mm-hmm. You know, when you consider that, it's like the implications are great. And okay, we take that step and we endure it. But to me, it's like, you know, you have to find that in whatever state. Paul, right? I've learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. I know how to be abase, and I know how to abound. And I'm sure another version would say it to where it makes more sense to in English. But it means I know how to have nothing, and I know how to have everything. Right.
And then he goes on to say, most out of context quoted verse of all time, Philippians 4:13. Right. Where he says, I can know how to have a lot, I can know how to have a little, but I can do all things through Christ.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what state you're in. Mm-hmm. Right. Not whatever it is that you want to conquer, the Lord will conquer it for you.
Right. Tim Tebow, take
or
that.
allow you to conquer it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that Tebow would view that, but it's...
I don't know. I'm just throwing out a pop culture reference. If Tim
Steph
Tebow's
Curry,
still pop
yes,
culture.
but
Right.
But it's for me, it's this idea, this concept of finding that in where you are.
Mm-hmm.
So like giving in generosity, right? Instead of saying and looking at that from a prosperity gospel, the Lord gave me this, right?
Yeah.
Because I gave, right? You can find the aspect of suffering in the fact that you're being generous is not in turn to get something, but it's your, literally you're entering into an element of suffering by giving it instead of using it.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I
you
think
find that aspect in worship in every area.
right.
And so it's not, prosperity gospel says, I'm giving this so that I get, right? But actually worshiping in your giving is finding the suffering aspect. I'm giving this because it hurts. You know what I mean? I'm giving this because I don't want to use this. I don't want this to be something that contributes to my life physically. I want this to contribute to someone else's life spiritually.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a different...
It's just a different perspective.
It's a gospel-centered perspective.
Right. And I feel like we get in the trap of looking at blessings, this way too, where we're like, well, I'm thankful that I have XYZ. The Lord's been good to me. And it's like, well, there's a lot who don't have that.
Right.
And the Lord is also good to them.
Exactly.
We have to stop defining blessings as like, well, this is good. I have money, I have family, I have my health. And there's millions of people who would look at that and say like, well, I have none of that.
Right.
But
so God is not good to me.
Right.
According to their scale.
According to that standard. Yeah.
Right.
It's just terrible.
And it's hard.
Thing.
It's
and
hard
it's very
for people
hard
to see that.
Yeah.
And I don't really know how to, other than preaching it all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know how to necessarily convey it other than to live it. And when we talk about it often, Sarah and I were like, whatever the Lord has for us. And we mean that. And that's where it plays into your decisions, where we as a church have to get better at being okay with whatsoever state. And not to the point that we glorify, and in our culture, it's no secret.
Yeah.
We glorify the good state.
We do.
We really do.
We do.
So let's in the church be a little bit, and not even necessarily forgiving, right? But let's be more open to living the life that we don't want. You know what I mean? And in that regard, when you're open to that, you're open to poverty as much as you're, as being rich, right? Many of you are statistically, you're in that state of, in the American life, the middle or impoverished state, right? And you think that this will make you happy. Well, no, it's about whatever state you're in saying, man, Lord, help me to live this in the way that you want me to live it.
Yeah.
Help me to be content. And it's often in those states that you get to another state. You move into another place because of this idea of acceptance, and the Lord using it for His good and for His glory. Not in this like self-deprecating way, right? But in this way that is like truly like, I'm content. It doesn't matter. None of this has anything to do, point number 2, none of this has anything to do with your end. This doesn't mean you are content with being lazy. This doesn't mean you're content with not praying or not giving it your all, right?
All the husbands watching like, well, I guess I ain't going to work tomorrow. I'm content being poor.
Yeah.
Figure it out, sweetheart.
That's ridiculous. That's not what we're saying.
Right.
But there are literally things, if you have a sovereign view of God, that are out of your control. And so in those areas that are out of your control, those are the extremes that the Lord uses to test your faith and to see if you're okay with those things, if you're okay with living in that state in your spirit, right? You'll always, hopefully, prayerfully, physically, we shouldn't get to that place where we're in need and not, pull a Jonah and sit under the gourd.
Yep.
No. This isn't an apathetic state. Go to work. Like I'm not, if anybody knows me, they know I'm not a proponent of laziness or sitting idly by, that's not who I am at all. But contentment is different. I could work very, very hard and give a lot away in this state because it's what my sovereign King is telling me to do, and I'm living vicariously through the Spirit of God in my life, right? Because I'm not tethered to a certain thing. I'm tethered to what He wants in that thing, and my decisions will be centered around that, gospel-centered. So it's a different perspective
for sure,
and it's not necessarily it's not a popular perspective. Narrow is the way, right? But broad is the way that leads to destruction.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah, and moving into the new year,
I digress.
right? Moving into the new year, when we look at the fast and when we look at all of us as a church having the opportunity to consciously make a decision to give something up for no logical reason, right? We're giving things up, and we're saying, Lord, I want you to use that. Like, I want you to shape my year because I'm seeking you and I'm giving things up for 21 days.
Yeah,
it's a big deal, and
it is.
And you said on Sunday, like our church and what we can do for the gospel is a culmination of all of our decisions.
That's right.
Not just us, not just the elders.
That's right.
Not just the finance committee,
Right.
but everybody that's a part of this church. Like, your decisions on a personal level matter.
Right.
And I think that's part of the issue with America being such an individualistic society. Not that I think there's pros to it, but on the level of when we make decisions, we're like, well, that's not anybody else's business. Well, when you look at things from a corporate perspective as a church and what the church was created to be, like, your very personal decisions do affect the state of the church.
That's right.
They do. And we have to look at it that way.
Yeah.
We have to stop looking at Scripture the way that we look at our country, because they're very different things.
Yeah, that's right.
But your decisions matter, and the decision that you make and what you choose to do with this fast will affect the course of your life and the life of our church in a big way.
Yeah, that's right.
Not because it's a mathematic formula, but because we believe that the Lord's going to do something.
Yeah, and if this, the way that we're just having a conversation here around this idea.
What we do.
Yeah, but if this idea of thinking is foreign to you and you're like, I don't really understand what he's saying or how to go about that or where to begin,
right?
It begins with the fast.
Yep.
It begins with, saying, I would eat this time of day every other day just like normal, but I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to indulge in this. I'm going to give that time and that full feeling to the Lord, and I will be emptied. Right? Mm-hmm. That is the crux of this whole entire conversation. And it is the manifestation of it in your life. And that is what we do. That's exactly what we do when we give in worship. That is what we do when we give in our relationships, when we have a gospel-centered mindset, when we take one for the team at work because we are trying to gain influence with someone because we care about their eternity. We prefer them over ourselves. Mm-hmm. We give someone else something or a position at work or time or whatever. We prefer them, and we do something gospel-centered, which means we let them have something that any other person in this that's just worried about this life would have already absorbed it or taken it.
They would have taken it for themselves.
That's the idea of fasting. And Jesus said, this kind cometh not, but by prayer and fasting, right? Mm-hmm. So this truth, if we unlock it, and here's the, really the last, time we're going to talk about this if you're tuning in on this podcast, the last time that we as a church are talking about this before you make your decision. When we get together on Sunday, that's the second, right? You're already a day in,
going,
right, into whatever this is. And so I just want to encourage you, whatever it is, sow into your year with this idea, and the Lord will bless it. He gave us the idea. He gave us the truth of what the gospel is. The upside down nature of the gospel is that we receive. By his stripes, we are healed. It is the pain that happens that we are receiving the problems being solved, right? And so this upside down nature of the gospel that radically transformed us and changed us and made us a new creature, gave us a new life from Christ's death, is how you sow into 2022 and make it a new year, a different year than what you had this year, by saying, look, Lord, I'm going to put you first. I want this, but I'm going to go without so that you can fill that space. We're creating space. Why do we not receive anything from the Lord? Why do we not? And that's why I pull into, from that mindset, I can pull it into this idea of your job and what the Lord's blessed you with. If the Lord blesses, it's easy for us to understand money. That's why I talk about it, and that's why the Lord talked about it a lot. You know? Sure. If you receive a promotion or you start a business or you do something crazy and the Lord blesses it, our church will be blessed if you're faithful in your giving and in your worship to the Lord that way. And so, when we approach those things, if you approach it with a mindset of greed and what you're trying to get and consume on your own, you'll only go so far. And I don't mean like, well, no, this person over here makes millions and billions. It's not measured in amount. It's measured in what he has and the grace that he has for you through that thing, whatever it is. He determines the measurement. It's not an amount of money that will make you happy. But if the Lord blesses because he's laid it on your heart and you're able to give generously, he will bless your generosity with filling you with grace, hope, and faith, and love, and all of the fruits of the Spirit, because that's what he's gifting you to do. There are some, I know right now, there are some in our church that are looking for their purpose, and that might be your purpose. That might be your thing. There are some in our church that are looking for your purpose, and it's just sharing. Maybe it's evangelism. The Lord has gifted you with the ability to share your faith to others, and you're not sharing it because of fill in the blank. You're scared, fear, how are they going to receive it? All of us, when we make the decision to take our wants and our needs and our thoughts and our insecurities and lay them aside and sow into that with what the Lord wants us to do, and we go without, the Lord, that's like fuel. It is fuel to the gospel fire that is in your heart. It's fuel, Holy Spirit fuel to your relationship with the Lord. And the Bible comes alive when we serve him in that way. And so I just really hope that you all are ready to jump into this and that you're ready to sow into this new year with this 21-day fast.
Yeah. And nobody will know if you're really jumping in except for you.
That's right.
So let's all jump in.
It's a personal thing that
it's
affects
a personal
the whole
thing
body.
that affects the corporate body.
That's right.
Yeah. Indeed.
Yeah.
But let's all jump in together. Let's all give some stuff up and inflict suffering on ourselves intentionally. Boy, that sounded like a...
He's going to go right back to that morbid spin. Poor Cody. He's
like,
just
it sounds
not feeling
like so
well.
much fun.
Morbid.
I'm fasting from my health today.
I'm dressed this way because I had a funeral today of all the morbid themes.
That fella knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Oh, that is
anyway,
terrible. So
thanks
dark,
for
so much dark humor.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thanks for hanging out with us today. Sermon notes are in the description. The video for the sermon is linked as well. And wherever you're listening or watching, please like and subscribe or follow, whatever that button says. Please do that. That helps us out a ton. Yeah. And we cannot wait to see you on Sunday for a new sermon series that is yet to be revealed.
Yeah, but we'll reveal it Sunday.
He'll reveal it Sunday.
Yeah.
It'll be revealed.
God bless you all.
God bless you less. Peace.
Yeah. Have a great day.